how are you today, Maddy?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me again. I love our conversations that we have.
Yeah. So first, we have an understanding of this energy called Reiki.
Mm.
Yeah. Then, so where does this Reiki energy come from? So, what do you think?
I always like to say like a scientific standpoint of like, well, everything is made out of energy, even if we are
Mm,
just looking at it from protons and neutrons and things like
yeah.
that, of like the basic building blocks of like
Mm,
science.
mm-hmm.
So everything is made out of energy. So it's like, well, literally, it's universal energy, is everything around us
Mm,
has energy, and we are also, having energy. And so sometimes I also like to talk about outer space and how energy flows, outside of our planet, but sometimes that gets a little too much for people.
oh, yeah. See, the student just a little difficult. Like they find it difficult to answer this question, like where does Reiki energy come from? Yeah, like what is Reiki energy? So maybe many people already understand what's ki. Like in Japanese,
Mm-hmm.
we say ki, or in Hong Kong or Chinese, like chi or hei. So
Mm-hmm.
we have this basic understanding of ki. And then that's really, I think that's already, for us, like a Japanese or even the people in Hong Kong. So we have this kind of understanding. Okay, so we understand what ki means. But when we talk about Reiki, because this Rei is really, the Reiki is the word that even you go to Japan now, like you can just randomly ask people like what's the meaning of
Mm-hmm.
Reiki? Like maybe not many people cannot answer this question. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then where does this energy come from? But after I explained to them, like actually Reiki and the key is the same meaning. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
actually after we all understand it, like we can also involve a universe, or we can involve the energy from the nature, like we can explain a lot. But then after we understand that, okay, so the key and the Reiki are actually the same meaning, almost the same meaning, then so where does key come from? Yeah, we
Mm-hmm.
can also replace the word like where does key come from? But I also see that many students still didn't really know, like maybe, yeah, oh, is it really sure? Like, yeah, where does key come from? So that's what I found, like, even the key, this kind of concept or the meaning, is it because it's not the thing that we went to school to learn about key? Do you think so? Do you have any like experience or learning things when you are at school? Like anybody talk about key energy at school?
No, but I feel like, there's so many words and so
Mm,
many languages
mm,
for energy that it's like a
yeah.
universal human kind of thing of like, yeah, energy is all around us. And
Mm,
so I think also when people come to our classes, usually they know energy kind of work as a concept. And so for
mm,
me,
mm,
yeah, I think that they don't have such a hard time grasping, like, oh, we have our physical body, we have our emotional body, we have our mental body, and then we have our energetic body.
mm,
And so, you know, I think usually people here at least don't question it because, it's prana and yoga and
mm,
Sanskrit, and then it's mana and like Hawaiian kind of
mm,
languages. And so I feel like so many, and
mm,
energy and English, like it's in so many cultures as just like a cultural reference that
mhm,
I think that's why I take it scientifically sometimes when I'm
mm,
talking about it, is because like people understand it within the language, they understand it in science, and so it's
mm,
just like, oh, let's just
mm,
collect and connect culture and science together, and that then I think for people is just like, yeah, of course energy is everywhere.
mm. So it's all like a separate. Like, yeah, we learn that energy, but there's no unite. Like, it's not like all together. Then how does it relate it to us? Like, I didn't really learn, or maybe I just sleeping. I don't know.
No, I think that
Yeah.
that is one of those things that it's not directly
Mm,
connected. Like even within the sciences, like
mm,
you're saying, the energy concepts weren't connected for me, but I do
mm,
feel like it's kind of a leap of logic sometimes of like, of course, like it's the same thing, just done in different ways,
yeah.
which then I feel like then Reiki is just the same thing done in a little bit different way too.
Mm,
And so I think that's where like the grounding and logic for me comes from is like it's not said as a word necessarily. And like energetic body, that wasn't, even used until more recently, I feel like in the sciences.
mm,
Um,
mm,
like there's the whole interstitium, which is like the energetic body essentially that is used in things like acupuncture and stuff. It's
mm,
like thought of that whole energetic body is you can only see on live people because it's an energy system like in the body also.
mm,
And so not just like the outside kind of one, but inside. And so it's thought that that is kind of what releases with, acupuncture. And so that actually is
mm,
something that's been around for so long, but science, Western science specifically didn't
mm.
have the words for it because they only did science on dead bodies as an example. And so now there is like, I think even in modern science, there's a lot more language to describe the energetic body because it is something that people are recognizing, oh, like these cells are fixing themselves. And these, when they're alive, they're actually like sending kind
Mm,
of electricity and stuff like that through them to different parts of the body. And so
mm,
it's a whole layer in the body. And so I think especially when we were going to school, there wasn't that much of a connection for,
mm,
this Western kind of science because it
mm.
really, especially in relation to our bodies, because it's so based on dead bodies instead of live bodies, which
Yeah,
now it's
yeah.
kind of, I think, starting to shift towards it's
Mm.
relating to us more because they're actually seeing it in live tissue.
In Japan, there's another subject. Actually, I don't know if they still exist in this kind of subject in Japan, like in the school note, but it's called Doutoku. And the Doutoku is the subject about learning moral. Yeah,
Mm,
this kind of situation, what do you think? Like, what do you feel? And then
mhm,
I'm kind of like it. Like, yeah, there's no test for, okay, so you have to answer this question. Like we have so many memorizing things. For example, mathematics, you have to calculate, and then language, you have to remember the kanji. But moral thing, like you can just write it down, like what did you feel about these things?
mm,
That's really about emotional education, I guess that. Yeah, I hope that they are still doing that. But
mm,
definitely, this Dotoku subject, the teacher never talk about so the energy and us, but we talk a lot about emotion. Even it's not really about energy, but after I learned Reiki, practicing Reiki, then the energy really related to our emotion too. Yeah, so
mm.
I think this kind of education really important. Yeah.
Like for example, Brene Brown in a lot of her books, she is
Mhm.
talking about like
Mm,
how the feelings, like naming them, have a certain energy, and then it gives you the power to like really
mm,
process how you're
mm,
feeling. And I feel like that's directly a lot of times when I listened to her latest book or read it, she
mm,
talked about how um that naming of emotions really can help to clear them from you so that they're not stuck. And it's like
mm,
that's Reiki, like having
mm.
the energy come in,
Yeah.
having it cycle, and then having it flow instead of
Mm,
just having it come in as
mm,
like, let's say it's anger or something, have it
mm,
get stuck there because we can't name it. And then there's none of the flow out. So then that's what causes, us to block up. I can name shame, or if I can name guilt, or if I can name like joy, then
uh-huh.
those flow through, and then you can actually feel the different kind of sensations that those bring up. So like for me,
Mm,
anger is more spiky and kind of
uh,
digs in a little bit and thorns, whereas like joy is this warmth and soothing flow, a lot like Reiki is. So yeah, like after I listened to that book, it was actually after I started learning with you. And I think I was still in level 1 or 2, but it was like bing, like automatically together. So
That's good. That's good book. My experience too, like before learning
Mm.
Reiki, then after learning Reiki, sometimes I'm still having the same book, right? My understanding much deeper. Like after I learn Reiki, then I going to read the book again, and then I'm kind of
Mhm.
like it. Like I didn't really like much about that book, but after I
Yeah.
learned Reiki, then I practicing, then I go back to the same book. Like, oh, okay, that's it's really makes sense to me, right? So
Yeah.
I really totally experience my energy level maybe higher. Yeah,
Mm.
so that I can understand differently. And then, the same thing is talking about, the monk in the
Mm.
temple, because sometimes we need to do this kind of family reunion. Then
Mhm.
we're going to ask a monk to come over because we are not a serious Buddhism, but sometimes
Mm.
this kind of family thing, we do that, right? Then we call the monk and then, okay, can you come over? So that the monk chanting the mantra for us that we need to, gasho. And then after we finish everything, sometimes we invite a monk to having the meal together. And then
Right.
one monk talked to us like, the Heart Sutra, for example, like we reading always the same mantra. Yeah, we always
Mm.
have the same mantra, but because of the people who reading it is different. Yeah, that
Right.
could be your energy frequency different, but also the time different. For example, now is a 2026, but let's say 100 years ago or 50 years ago, like,
Mm.
the people always reading the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then the people also facing the different situation too. Then maybe the how the people pick the meaning from the sutra,
Mm.
we cannot really say is exactly the same, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's the same thing. Like whatever you're going to experience, like you see things and read things. Like I feel like it. Like, oh, so the same book. But if you go back and read again, actually, oh, why it does sound this to me? Like maybe I couldn't feel like that before, but then oh, that's a different meaning I could pick up. Yeah.
Mm.
I'm almost enjoying the things like this now. I
Yeah.
want to repeat the same books. I want to repeat the same manga even, and then anime. And then sometimes I feel like no longer that attracted anymore. Like
Mm.
before, I'm so into it, but now, okay. But some of the books and stories, I really want to read again. Like I think the people are really changing. Yeah, this is the
Mm.
proof that we are really changing all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe Reiki is the one thing too. Like, yeah, when we are explaining about Reiki and let the student know, so where does Reiki come from? Yeah, of course, logically, yeah, we are kind of understand and can easily imagine that. But
Mhm.
how do you imagine it and create a story inside the brain? Like maybe everybody have a different case too, right?
Yeah. They usually do have some sort of energy experience. So like putting
Mm,
it in their experience too, or putting it in anybody's individual experience of
mm,
like
mm,
how do you feel energy when it comes into you or when do you feel it? Because then I feel like that is an experience and Reiki is such an experiential thing. Like if you
mm,
don't
mm.
feel energy, then you're not going to stick with it. Like it's
Yeah.
that kind of thing. If it's not making you feel a certain way, either physical sensations or mental calmness or, soothing somebody else so that you see that kind of thing. So if you're not having that experience in some way, then it's like people won't stick with it. So really, I think that is the most important thing is
Mm,
what is each individual's experience with it because I
mm.
think that's one of the things that has struck me so much and that I'm so interested in all the time is like when somebody comes and gets Reiki, like
Uh-huh.
has a Reiki session, how
Uh-huh.
they describe it in their body, even the same
Mm.
person, it will change so
Mm.
much every time.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, that is the experience, and that is the
Mm.
Reiki of you feeling the
Mm.
energy. Like, where does that come from? Well, it's coming from all around, like inside
Mm.
you and outside you. So
I
yeah,
think practicing Reiki definitely, make us open mind and there's no normal anymore. Like,
no.
but I think we used to stick with the normal life. And then I don't know, like, sometimes maybe I shouldn't say so, but in the Japanese community, like the sometimes people scare about maybe you
Mm,
are out of the circle, like you are not normal, like
mm,
so we feeling the pressure like we have to be normal, like we have to be same with other people. But after we experience Reiki and practicing Reiki, then we are kind of like it, that kind of own very individual sensation, right?
mm,
But yeah, I think it's good to true to your feeling, like what do you feel? So that's your feeling. But sometimes because we are so shy, or maybe we feel so pressure, then it's really hesitate to say it, or maybe that's not okay. Maybe let's keep it
yeah.
and then don't say it now. Like I think that's also. Do you think it's damaging to yourself? I don't know.
I think so because when I was going to go live in Japan, because I was in Vietnam before I lived in
Mm,
Japan, and I
yeah.
had a couple Japanese acquaintances and friends, and they actually
Mm,
had said like
mm,
one of the cultural things that they had told me directly was like
mm.
that is a cultural norm is the tallest nail is hammered down. And so I
Yeah,
was like,
they
so what about individuality and what about, because I think that's a big difference is in the States, like individuality is really valued in a lot of ways of like,
mm,
how do you stick out and like this kind of thing
mm,
in an extraordinary way, maybe, um, is like very valued in a lot of ways, even if it's not always a positive way.
mm.
It seems to, get attention and stuff. So
Oh,
it
okay.
was like that mindset, I think, that you're kind of describing of like, don't stick out. It causes people to doubt their own experiences because they feel like if they can, I mean,
Mm,
here too, it's the same. Like people doubt what they're experiencing because it's not normal for everybody to
mm,
experience it because
mm,
they haven't just had the experience yet, right? Like it's not that it's not true. It's just that you
mm,
know,
mm,
everybody has different backgrounds and different ways they've grown up. So yeah, I really agree with you is I
mm.
feel like it sounds like that saying is true in Japan, especially if the
My difference, like, because I understand that that kind of cultural thing, like let's say habits, is still there. So
mm,
before I really feeling more pressure, maybe like I have to
mm,
be like that in this circle, having this kind of old habits somehow make myself, even I tell a lie to myself, it is really painful. But
mm,
now I'm more free, like I could really feel freedom, like yeah, even though I'm kind of pretending like oh, I'm in that circle, but then I also understand that this is my feeling, then I really like it. Yeah, so that kind of activity for me is really good feeling for me too.
mm,
Like at least I'm not really hurting myself, like yeah. I didn't really realize that I was doing it on myself,
mm,
but now I feel like, oh, that's a different thing. So maybe better to just try speak to truth to myself.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.